So on the last video that I made about the hag, I mentioned another popular entity that is often seen during sleep paralysis, namely shadow people. After many requests to make a follow-up video on these, I decided to do just that. This is All Things Creepy, let's begin. There are many definitions and possible explanations for shadow people, but to start off, let's give a broad definition. A shadow person is the perception of a shadow or a dark patch as something that is actually living as opposed to just blocked out light from another object. Like the hag, shadow people are often seen during sleep paralysis all over the world. There are countless accounts of it across the globe. People wake up, they can't move, they're in a paralysed state, and it can be as simple as a shadowy figure just walks into their room and nothing happens. Perhaps they catch a dark silhouette moving out of the corner of their eye. The shadow people therefore present more of a mysterious phenomena than the hag, providing not as much of a direct threat as opposed to something that is just unexplained and confusing to the person experiencing it. There are many historical documentations of these events, and a lot of religious groups tend to explain them as demonic entities. In Middle Eastern religions, they are often referred to as the Djinn. Some conspiracy theorists believe that they are from beyond a dimension that we can actually see with our eyes. As I'm sure you're all aware, we see through a visible spectrum of light, but there are other spectrums outside of what we can perceive. Maybe an insect with a more developed eyeball is able to see these and we can't. These shadowy figures would therefore be something out of the realm of our vision, and as a result only appear as these distorted shadowy images. This is another situation where science hasn't really explained it fully yet, however there are some theories surrounding it. For those sightings during sleep paralysis, it's most likely explained by the dream state. When we're asleep, we have a lot of dreams. We often remember the most vivid ones, the nightmares. However, while asleep, our brain will often run through very mundane situations. For instance, walking down the street. If you walk down the street, you will see people walking around as well, unless you live in the nuclear wastelands of Chernobyl or something like that. During sleep paralysis, you are partially awake and partially asleep. Effectively, your mind is still asleep, but your body is now in touch with the physical world. And perhaps this mixing up or crossing of wires is why we see these shadowy figures. Perhaps they are reflections of our dream, not quite fully formed, projecting themselves onto the real world. They could also be cases of pareidolia. The human brain always tries to make patterns out of things. We look at clouds, we think we see a sheep, we think we see dinosaurs, stuff like that. But I think we all know that nobody has made those into those shapes, it's just a coincidence, and our brain picks out those patterns. The same could be said for a shadow. Perhaps during this very frightening stage of sleep paralysis, someone could see a shadow and just perceive it as moving when it isn't actually. But shadow people haven't just been sighted during sleep paralysis, they've been seen during the day and quite possibly even caught on tape. Jim Jones was an American cult leader during the 1960s and 70s. He convinced a number of people to move entirely to a place in Africa that he named Jonestown. People were so fanatically involved with him that when he asked them all to kill themselves, many of them did, and even forced their children to do so too. He claimed to be godlike, a Jesus-type figure if you will, and quite clearly many people believed that. Here's some footage during one of his speeches, and apparently if you look closely you can see shadowy figures amongst the crowd. Take a look for yourself. Of course, this footage is quite old and it has many flaws, as the filming capabilities back then weren't as good as they are today. So maybe this is just another case of pareidolia, or maybe it's something more. Jim Jones was definitely an evil person. If demons are real, which who knows, they probably had something to do with him. Here's a recording of him before committing suicide. Apparently, you can hear the demonic sounds as the people are dying.
take our life from us. We laid it down. We got tired. We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide, protesting the conditions of an inhumane world. I can do them. All they're doing is taking a drink to go to sleep. That's what death is, sleep.
Many suggest maybe this was some kind of demonic ritual, but then again, many of these people were devoted to the point of being insane, and insane people make weird noises, so perhaps there is a rational explanation. But it is often suggested that these noises are those shadowy figures we saw before being able to enter our reality due to the sacrifice of life. Have you ever encountered shadow people? Let me know in the comments below. Like this video if you want to see more like it, share it with a friend, and of course if you haven't already, subscribe for more creepy content.